Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Tête-a-Tete with Inaya. When I first started this show, I wanted to do a talk show where I would interview people about various issues regarding their personal lives, how they started their professional journeys, their passions, etc. But as I moved towards the third episode, I realized that I'm rather discovering new and interesting career opportunities, and I'm sure this will help my viewers explore different careers and decide which professional paths they want to pursue. Coming up on the show, carrying on the trend, in this episode, I will be interviewing a reputed and award-winning screenplay writer, Mrs. Gajra Kottary, who has written many popular, critically acclaimed shows like Astitva, Ek Prem Kahani, Balika Vadhu, Molki, etc. She is also an author who has written many beautiful stories like Girls Don't Cry, Once Upon a Star, The Last Laugh, Broken Melodies, and her latest one, Autumn Blossoms, to name a few. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you, Inaya. It's a pleasure to be talking to you. You are utter charm.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, you've written novels, you've written a popular series, you've written so many popular series. So, ma'am, my question to you is, what is screenplay writing and how is it different from writing a novel?
Right. Ultimately, it's all about telling a story, Inaya. And when we are less experienced, or we feel a story does not have the ability to stretch itself and it should be told in a very short and snappy way, we make a short story out of it rather than a novel. Now, when something lends itself to a very visual representation, when you feel that images and sound and dialogue and actual scenes will contribute in enhancing the story hugely, that's when you choose to write it in scenes. So there is an art to it and there's also a craft to it. So a lot of people believe that, oh, it's so obvious to, when you conceptualize a story and then just make scenes out of it. No, but there's a lot of craft involved in being able to visualize that, where will a character enter from into the frame, for example, and speak, from which angle, what will be the expression on his or her face, what are the words and what is the tone in which the character will speak.
Yes.
All these things come together to create an impactful scene, and when the entire story is told in scenes, it becomes a screenplay. So it's actually a very specialized kind of angle or aspect of storytelling through the audiovisual media.
Yeah, I relate to that as an author myself, because many times when I'm thinking of a story, sometimes I imagine it as if it's taking place in a movie, like the expressions, the dialogues, but then of course I have to find a way to translate it onto the paper.
Right. Often what happens is, what you're describing, in say 3 paragraphs in a story which is written for a book, could probably not even, in terms of timing in a scene, it may not take up any time because it's description. I mean, the whole graph of when the character walks in, he looks angry, but as he looks at the girl, his expression starts softening. Now, this is taking a lot of words to write, but actually it's just the expression on a character's face and barely takes a few seconds when you translate it on screen.
Yes, ma'am. So you've explained what screenplay writing is, but how is screenplay writing for a movie different from that of a daily soap or a serial?
If I were to express it in a very light-hearted way, sheer budget. Because when you have a big actor who is supposed to, emote, you will be spending a lot of money. Depending on the movie, the screenplay will pan itself out as to whether it's a very expensive mounting. For example, you won't have a scene of a hero or an SRK getting off the helicopter and then walking into his walking for a very long time into his mansion. You won't have a scene like that. You won't have a mansion, you won't have a helicopter in a TV show. So budgets are much lower in television, and since now in India and a lot more countries there is daily television. So you're making, eventually you're making content for 20 minutes, sometimes half an hour, sometimes even 1 hour a day. So, after the initial few episodes which are banked, when you're not on air yet,
Yes.
where you can take a bit of time. Otherwise, you have to churn out that 20 minutes or 25 minutes of content every day. So, you have to make sure your scenes hold, despite the fact that it is not, you don't have too much happening, too much action. And that's why sometimes television also tends to become verbose. People are talking all the time. There's no movement even within the scene, because everyone gets a bit lazy. They feel we'll be able to sort of churn out more content per day if we make it more verbose, and the character just has to do the actor has to just do a whole lot of preparation and then come and mouth it all, and you have got your 7-minute scene. But that's not really good screenplay. So this art of writing screenplay for a television show is to make it hold despite the constraints of budget and situation. Sometimes, more often than not, we shoot on a set. So it's all very closed, and that can get boring to see. So how do you make it interesting to see and hear within those constraints?
Okay, ma'am. And ma'am, I've also heard that sometimes writing for a daily soap or a serial takes place on a daily basis. Like, that must get tiring. Is that true?
Unfortunately, yes. Actually, it's not the writing that takes place on a daily basis. Writers are very disciplined. I often have a term for television writers is that we are creative laborers, because we cannot afford to wait for mood and time, something to strike. कुछ thought आएगा तो लिखेंगे. No, you just have to be at it day after day, because there is output to be achieved. Having said that, it is the sometimes not very healthy way of working, but sometimes people want changes or there are exigencies. For example, unfortunately, if a particular track or a character is not working, sometimes there's pressure from platforms or from your producer or your team saying that is character ke scenes kam kar do. So when you have to do something like that, it involves the last minute rewriting. Sometimes there are genuine emergencies. Like we had a phase in Balika Vadhu where a lot of actors were falling sick. Some were making excuses also because they were tired of shooting. So we were just faced with a situation when all the writers would be wanting to get on with their lives after having nicely made a bank of, okay, now we are sorted for the next 5 episodes, and suddenly you're told XYZ is not coming, so the entire track has to be changed. We need stuff, we can't not go on air. So that part really gets to you sometimes.
But the main writing for the episodes, like the storyline, that's already done beforehand.
It is, yeah. Especially the broad story is decided. And the one, people who are doing the episodic story and then screenplay and dialogue, it's very, very divided and specialized in a way. So those people down the line have to be on their toes all the time. So you get paid well, but you have no life.
So ma'am, you've done so many things, but what do you prefer? Do you prefer writing a novel, short stories, maybe a daily soap, weekly soap, movie?
Writing for television has involved an adrenaline rush, which is exciting when you're at a certain stage, age and phase of life. You don't mind doing it, but the stage at which I am today, I wish to do more quality work, but a bit slower. So I'm trying to reinvent in that sort of mold, reinvent myself. And more than that, I think to answer your question specifically, I enjoy writing short stories the most. This current stint with Autumn Blossoms that has been brought out, my latest book, has given me a lot of satisfaction, and there's a sense of completion after every story, and then you move on to a fresh thing, because as it is in my television shows, and I've done a lot of them, it's like chewing gum. It just goes on stretching, whether you like it or not, whether you're happy and comfortable or not, you got to keep going with the same story and set of characters. So here I get to do something fresh every little while. So short stories is very satisfying, but having said that, now I'm writing novels again. I love to keep changing. It kind of refreshes me, makes me feel fresher about the next assignment.
And ma'am, I definitely look forward to reading more of your work. Unfortunately, I'm only 15, so I haven't seen many of your series, but my mom used to watch your show Balika Vadhu.
Ji.
And she's seen many episodes of it. I think she saw it till the point when the adult Anandi was about to get divorced. Ma'am,
Okay.
Balika Vadhu addresses many important social issues, especially child marriage, as do many of your other shows. So how did you think of incorporating such social issues into your series and, you know, weaving them in the way that the plot would seem more interesting and appealing to the viewers?
Right. Interesting but difficult question to answer. See, my background has been in journalism. So the moment you sort of prepare to enter a profession like journalism, you become socially aware, you develop a kind of a voice, you have an opinion, which in fiction is also called the author's voice. So it's not just the lines you write, it is what they say comes through between the lines. So as a result of my background, where I constantly wanted to say something significant and say something good. I mean, in a sense, you can say give out the right message or have a sense of social responsibility. A lot of times there is this big debate, you know, that should writers have social responsibility? Aren't they just supposed to be entertainers? But I believe I'm completely unapologetic about the fact that if you genuinely have something to say, you should say it along with entertainment, because it is a combination of both that really lifts the heart of the watcher. So I have tried to do that, and when I shifted from journalism to fiction writing, I sort of automatically started, especially television, not so much my novels and short stories, but I kept thinking for a mass audience. It's a much wider audience than you know, any audience for your books or short story collections. So moment you think mass, you also think of what affects the mass, you also think of what might appeal to them, what is important to them, what will entertain them, all of that. And that's how you take up a lot of social issues. Like if I want to write about a small town girl, I know that the television audience is largely comprising small town young girls. Immediately my mind will sort of move you know, into thinking that what are their concerns, what are their aspirations, what are their realities, what constraints do they feel in achieving those dreams. So what kind of an entertaining story can I tell to make them feel that, oh, this is my story. That's, you know, ultimately the aim of any television show. What the two important elements to be kept in mind. One is aspiration, what I want to be, and one is relatability, that this is my story, or this is my sister's story, or my aunt's story, or my mom's story. So you keep all these things in mind, and if you keep aware of what's happening in your country, around you, in your society, it just becomes a sort of a habit to weave the two, you know, take the basic concern, the thought, and then weave a story which also entertains.
I definitely get that. So ma'am, most of your serials, your novels, they're all women centric.
Yeah.
They're all centered around women, about the lives of women, their work, etc. So I mean, talking so much about feminism and women, how do you define feminism? Like, what is feminism to you? And recently in society also there's been an ongoing debate about feminism. So what are your views on feminism, and who is a feminist according to you?
Right. My gosh, for your age you ask very serious questions, Inaya. I'll try and answer that. So yes, just like I said, that I do not feel apologetic about the fact that a writer should have some social responsibility. I don't think feminism is a bad word. It's just bandied around, and sometimes it is exploited, or is it misunderstood or there's a misconception around the world. I think any kind of ism is actually supposed to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
In the case of women who, as I say, I think what is the biggest power for a woman? A biggest power for a woman is that she should be in control of her life. She should be able to make the choices, whether it's her personal life or whether it's what she wants to be in life. It doesn't matter if she truly wants to be a homemaker, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
So no sort of judgment on that score. Now, feminism, according to me, therefore, in its healthiest version, is the ability of a woman to be able to make her own choices and be happy, to be a complete woman. However, if it's going to be alienating, if it's going to, destroy families and give a woman individualism at the cost of her family, at the cost of her bonding with other human beings, and biggest thing, at the cost of the happiness of children.
Yeah.
I'm a very strong believer in the fact that in this individualism, children there should be something called family life. And that sometimes if we carry feminism or menism too far, that is not going to happen, and that's not really something we want to look forward to. I'm perfectly okay, for example, with a couple that says we don't want children. It's absolutely fine. It's a good choice for them if it works for them. But if you bring children into the world, I think we owe them a happy childhood.
Responsibility.
Yes, exactly.
So on social media, as a child, I've been on YouTube mostly. So I've seen many Twitter like tweets by so many dumb people converted into memes that are basically about pseudo-feminism. Like there's this one example I saw where it was basically a list about the top female artists of Spotify. And some woman had commented, "See, there are no men in this list."
Oops. Oh my God. That says it.
Yeah, and then there are some agencies like Kill All Men. Like, I feel that's pseudo-feminism. Feminism is about equality of men and women, isn't it?
I think a lot of these are also because they want to draw attention. I mean, it's like people do weird things just to get those numbers. In Hindi we have this kahavat na, badnaam bhi honge to kya naam na hoga. I have a feeling a lot of it is that. So yes, it's a bit irritating. I mean, my daughter often, she runs a podcast on mental health. So she often talks about how sad it is, although her podcast is doing well, but she says no one takes what should be taken very seriously, no one takes. And there are all these sort of women who are sort of removing their clothes or doing all these kind of antics to draw attention to themselves, and they are getting likes and they are becoming social media stars. So in fact there is a whole chunk of younger people who want to do things right, who get very disillusioned with this. But it takes all types to make the world, so one has to just take this with a bag of salt.
Definitely, ma'am. And now let's move on to your book, Autumn Blossoms.
Yeah.
So ma'am, please tell us a bit more about the book.
My favorite subject these days. So there are 50 stories in Autumn Blossoms. For very practical reasons, creative reasons also, we've divided the book into 3 parts because my stories tend to be about women's relationships. So we sort of categorized 3 sections. There is a whole section on women's stories which center around women's relationships with men, which is a very significant, very important to most women. That section stories. Then there's something about women's relationships with other women, which gets very complex, very complicated, and women's relationship with themselves, because I think that's what the actually the base of all other relationships is, how you feel about yourself. So there are some stories which are purely about how we connect with ourselves. So and a lot of these stories are taken from my earlier collections, but a lot of them are also fresh. So I think if you count all 50, they cover quite a gamut of women's concerns. Also most of them tend to be middle class urban women, which again is something that television has taught me, that the middle class is the most sort of interesting class of where you'll find maximum stories to tell, and which is both aspirational and relatable. So very, very excited, very charged about this collection, and I got back to short story writing after quite some time. It was very refreshing. It's been received extremely well, and I hope that readers find it interesting too.
Ma'am, what made you get back to short story writing?
Oh, that's purely because I did so much of television in the intervening years that I felt I was in the danger of losing my own individual voice, because television is a very, very a collaborative sort of medium. So when you may come up with a basic storyline, but after that you have to get into discussions and you got to listen to a whole lot of people. So very often your stories ends up looking different from where you started. Sometimes it's also frustrating. So I felt that I don't want to dry up in terms of my imagination, my lone voice, my strength of conviction, and therefore even though I'm not giving up on television, I am keeping this beautiful parallel life of writing, so that I don't lose my individual voice. I can say all the stories which television finds it difficult to say in its purest form. That's what made me go back.
That's nice, ma'am. What made you give it the title Autumn Blossoms?
Right. Autumn Blossoms, usually you associate autumn with a very sad time of life.
It's my favorite season actually.
Yeah, I guess, especially if you live in Delhi. So yes, it's associated with that. I would say the darkest phase of any woman's life, it could also be looked at as a challenge that she's facing. Sometimes she comes out of that challenge and she blossoms, but she doesn't always blossom like a flower. She also discovers her strength, even if it's the sheer strength to know that yes, I can face this. So it's not about the later phase of your life or anything like that. It's about a challenging time which brings out a true color in a woman's life when she's faced with a particular situation. So I for some reason like to give generic titles. None of my short story collections have been titled after a particular story. Otherwise, you usually say The Fox and the Grapes and Other Stories. So I don't have that. I've not done that
when I write something.
Yeah. So I just felt, and there is this theme of women's stories running through anyway. My first collection was called Fragile Victories. My second was called The Last Laugh. Because they were stories of that kind. They were moving towards a woman having the last laugh. And Autumn Blossoms is like what I described. Challenging situations in a woman's life and bringing out a particular shade which you wouldn't expect. I mean, that's what every reader wants. They want to be surprised. So I think most of the stories will surprise the reader.
That makes a lot of sense, ma'am. Also, ma'am, I noticed that most of your stories, they start with a quatrain.
Yes.
Now, I've read many books that do this, but I want to hear it from you personally. What purpose does that serve?
Actually, it forces you to look at your story after you've written it. First, there is this burst of spontaneity where you've written a story out. Very often we don't analyze stories after they have been written, that what was I thinking? What am I trying to say through this story? So, there was this when I was trying to find a generic title, a theme, and just sort of analyzing my own stories. It was like past and present, what are my trends, how have I evolved as a writer? When all those thoughts were going on in my discussions with my editor, it was very encouraging. He said, why don't you write 4 lines which encapsulate what you are trying to say, the essence of the story. So that's when one went back and felt it would be a very interesting takes, and also add that little bit of mystery.
Flavor.
Because when a reader is reading those 4 lines, they're saying, hey, what is this story all about? Chal, let me read it. So it's all about enticing the reader to read on.
I'm sure by now the viewers would be thoroughly impressed and inspired by Mrs. Kottary and her stories and all that she has achieved in her life. But that's not all. Mrs. Kottary's father is Pandit Amarnath of the Indore Gharana, a renowned classical musician. Om Books International is launching a biography about him on his 100th anniversary. So in light of this momentous occasion, ma'am, please tell us a bit more about him, his life and his work.
Oh, that's so beautiful. We are launching the book in another 2 days. The book, however, is already out for those who would like to read, and it's a book in Hindi. I am not the author of the book. The author is my brother's wife, who has spent perhaps longer knowing my father as a human being than I did. Yes, I grew up in that house and I was loved by him and all of that. But she has spent a very interesting phase of life with him right up to his end in 1996. It was a very mixed bag growing up in a home like that. I went to a convent school, so I had the best exposure to an English medium education, etc. But when I came back home, the atmosphere, the whole lifestyle was quite traditional, but it was also very creative. There was a lot of encouragement of creativity. So though I didn't take to classical music, I think my sort of genetic makeup definitely encouraged me to be in the creative field. I can't imagine myself doing anything else. And also my father used to write poetry, Hindi poetry.
Yeah.
He used to love watching movies with me. He used to love, we must have not missed a single Amitabh Bachchan movie, seeing it in the theatre in the 80s. And if I didn't get to see first day, first show, I would throw a tantrum, and being the youngest in my family, I would get away with it also. So we had this wonderful relationship of watching, discussing stories, storylines, characters, life, philosophy, poetry. So that part of him is something I could take ahead, if not the music. And this is his 100th year. So we thought, we should pay a kind of tribute to him, because he was known as a musician's musician, a musicologist. He's written the first English dictionary of, musical terms and terminology. And Penguin has published we have brought it out posthumously. It was out in 2021. So, all this lifetime work of his, and his generation, they did not really believe or were not able to, preserve the material. So I just took it upon myself that for his 100th year, we should put together his lifetime work. And this is the first of the couple of projects. He has one very devoted disciple. I think most people have heard of her, Rekha Bhardwaj. She learnt music from him. So the two of us together have attempted to, bring this book out. It's again published by Om Books, and I'm very, very grateful to them for giving me this opportunity. We hope to do his life and his work a lot of justice in this coming year.
That's very sweet, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
And that was the end of the long answer questions. Now there is a short rapid fire round. So, ma'am,
Which is scary.
No, the rules are simple. There's just one rule. Basically, the answers just have to be short and crisp, preferably 1 or 2 words. Okay. So, shall we begin?
Sure.
So, what's your favorite book that you have written yourself?
Girls Don't Cry.
And your favorite book that you haven't written by another author?
Elif Shafak's 40 Rules of Love.
Nice. That's a recommendation for you all. Okay, your favorite series again that you have written?
Astitva, my first daily. Yeah.
And your favorite series that you have not written yourself?
Sans.
Okay. Your favorite film?
Hindi or English?
Both. Like, you can give 2 recommendations.
Currently, I am full of an old movie which I watched with a dear friend called Alap.
Okay, and English?
English. I recently saw a movie called Fair Play, which I
think
feel,
I've heard of it.
Yes. I was all prepared to hate it, but I loved it. Yeah.
Okay, your favorite film actor
Sanjeev Kumar.
and your favorite song?
Rehna Biti Jaye.
English?
No.
You don't
Wasn't
listen?
allowed to listen to English music as a child.
And now?
आदत छूट गई है.
Okay, and that was the end of the rapid fire round. Ma'am, you did wonderfully.
Thank you.
And also the end of the interview. I'm sure everyone enjoyed the interview. It was a very insightful session into how the industry works and what happens behind the scenes of our favorite shows.
And
So-
I'm going to read your book very seriously. I cannot believe how a girl as young as you has been able to write this complete book. I mean, I'm trying to remember what I was at your age. So I'm going to sort of read it and feel a little humbled, maybe.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you so much for tuning into this episode.
Thank you, Inaya. God bless you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And viewers, we'll see you all next time. Bye.
And now it's time for a musical performance.
Well, sometimes I go out by myself and I look across the water, and I think of all the things what you're doing, and in my head I paint a picture. Since I've come on home, oh well, my body's been a mess, and I miss your ginger hair and the way you like to dress. Oh, won't you come on over? Stop making a fool out of me. Why won't you come on over, Valerie? Valerie, Valerie. Did you have to go to jail? Put your house on up for sale. Did you get a good lawyer? Hope you didn't catch a tan. Hope you found the right man who'll fix it for you. Are you shopping anywhere? Change the color of your hair. Are you busy? And did you have to pay that fine? You were dodging all this time like you still dizzy. Since I've come on home, well, my body's been a mess, and I miss your ginger hair and the way you like to dress. Won't you come on over and stop making a fool out of me? Why won't you come on over, Valerie? Well, sometimes I go out by myself and I look across the water, and I think of all the things what you're doing, and in my head I paint a picture. Since I've come on home, well, my body's been